I want to bring up Ina Fried, who's a great friend of Techonomies and one of the great technology journalists of the world. Been on our stage a number of times before. She's the chief technology correspondent and editor at Axios, which itself is a pretty extraordinary new institution in media. So, Ina, come on out and do this next session.
Great. Thank you, everyone. I'm really excited to talk about the next topic, which is extending reality, VR, and AR. And welcome, Mark, Tony. Great. So, one of the things, obviously, at Techonomy, we focus a lot on where things are going, and that's where I want to use most of our time. But I think it's really important to look at where we are today in VR and AR and kind of how we got there. I think there's some lessons to be learned. I think I think this isn't new to most of the people in the audience who've been through a few of these technology curves. We get super excited about something, ton of money pours in, then there's this moment, Marine Fan called it, the trough of disappointment or disillusionment. I think we'd all agree we're kind of there with parts of VR and AR, maybe back excited about parts of AR. But let's talk a little bit about where we are right now and how we got here. Tony, you guys, Unity, for those who don't know, kind of its birth as a gaming engine, but is also really at the center of this. Because if you want to develop for VR and AR, you need sort of a world to do it, and you guys provide that world. Talk a little bit about where we are right now and sort of how we ended up here.
So it was about 3 years ago. We know about the explosion on the scene of the Oculus Rift. Facebook spending billions of dollars to purchase this VR headset and sort of shocked everyone. That excitement was kind of around this consumer experience that would take you somewhere. And what we discovered is that people didn't want to just get taken somewhere. They wanted to use VR to do a lot of different things. There's several other manufacturers of virtual reality hardware. This is this kind of thing that obscures your whole face and vision. And in parallel with that, unbeknownst to a lot of folks, Microsoft was taking Kinect technology and working on this thing called the HoloLens, which gave you an augmented reality headset experience so you could see the world around you. And what's happened over the last couple of years is lots of industrial and non-gaming consumer entertainment and brand creative use cases have emerged. And it appears that the world really is truly excited about this technology. And we've kind of hit this place where, because of the bulky nature of a VR headset, because of the social aspects of wearing those, there's been a bit of a stall in the marketplace where, I think a lot of folks are expecting meteoric growth. As we do, we get ahead of ourselves and our expectations here. And that's sort of self-corrective, right? There's less froth in the venture community to fund VR startups and so on. And yet, at the same time, there are industrial use cases happening, which we can enumerate in a minute. So it's sort of proceeding apace, but it's gone from the front page news to becoming, a technology that needs to sort of find its way through the marketplace. At the same time, phone-based augmented reality has burst onto the scene this year with Apple announcing ARKit and Google announcing ARCore. And the promise there is that we're going to reach about 500 million people based on the devices they already have in their pocket or the next version of phones from either Apple or Pixel and Google and Android phone makers. And so that's interesting. It's a very lightweight experience. You're taking your phone, you're holding your phone up, you're seeing magical stuff through a magic window that is your phone. One of your hands is occupied doing this. My arm's already tired, by the way. And the other one's doing that. And so it's not the same as HoloLens and all this magical stuff we expect where we're masters of reality manipulating things in midair. It's not there yet. But it's something that's going to give us magical content right in front of us with a device we have in our pocket. You don't have to pay anything extra. You don't put anything on your face. There's nothing heating up on your face. It doesn't actually challenge the computer in the same ways that a super graphically intense VR thing does, like a mobile VR, like Gear VR. So there's a lot of goodness to it. It's not, by anybody's estimation, I'm not speaking for Apple or Google on this, but I don't believe anybody who's into this believes that is the end state. We believe that's the next step toward people understanding immersion, along with 360 videos, which we're all fairly familiar with, which you can view on a flat screen, do this with your phone, or get in a headset and see. So we're in this place right now where the high-end VR is working its way through industrial use cases. I'm sure Mark's going to talk about this. This stuff in your pocket with augmented reality is going to be consumers' first taste, and it's going to be a place where developers get to go work for a while and presumably make some money. We're seeing a bit of a shift in the development community toward AR as well, but it's all 3D immersive content, which, me being at Unity, We love that. I mean,
Right.
That's what we do. We make a 3D engine, we make a platform, people buy our development software, and on mobile they also monetize through ads. And so this is a fertile ground for us, and we're seeing it power industries across the board. So super exciting.
From my sense, two things are happening. One, the consumer, for the moment, you've still got a gaming community and some community putting on headsets, but sort of the mass market is shifting to this phone AR. That's where sort of ready for prime time is. The headsets, they're there. Some people put them on. The optics have to get better. The use cases have to get more compelling. But one of the really interesting things is what's going on in the enterprise. And people don't hear about it as much. My guess is it's still small scale type things. But you have a couple really interesting factors going on. You have the fact that companies, there's big money in it. So if they can get a little more productivity, increase safety, that sort of thing, that will pay for expensive gear. You're not hanging around your friends, so you'll put up with a little more awkwardness. Mark, talk a little bit about what you're seeing at Accenture, both in the labs and also in the business.
Yeah, I mean, I think Tony was absolutely spot on describing the landscape today, which is really moving in different directions. But if you think about Accenture, we're really in a big consulting company in the enterprise business. And there's two numbers that are really striking. If you look at the last IDC survey related to AR/VR market, today, the estimate is about $14 billion. That's basically the market of AR/VR. And if you look at it, out of those $14 billion, 70% is related to consumer business. And that 70%, it's not about service, it's about devices that people buy. So mainly in gaming. But what's very interesting is that in 3 years' time, 2020, it is estimated that the business is going to be $143 billion. That is starting to be interesting. Because not only the number is going to be bigger, but the ratio is going to change completely. Instead of 30% for enterprise and 70% consumer, it's going to be completely the other way around. It will be 70% enterprise, 30% consumer. And there's going to be a lot of service developed. So, as you said, I mean, it's all about use cases, it's all about efficiency, it's all about different things that we're doing. So I wear two hats, basically. I drive, basically, a global business around AR, VR. In fact, we don't call that AR, VR, to be honest with you, because we believe that it's going to be beyond AR, VR. I think we should call that extended reality, because I think what we want to do is that we want to combine different sensors and different technology and capability that's going to make you basically transported to a completely immersive experience. So it's not only the visualization, it's also the audio feedback. It's also basically the olfactive sense. There's all those different things that combining that together, this combinatorial effect is going to make something really magic, as Tony mentioned. So going back to enterprise, so that's basically one part of my business. The other part of my business is to run all the R&D globally for Accenture. So what's interesting is to look at exactly the use cases that are going to be prominent for our clients. And there's a couple of examples of things that I wanted to share with you. So typical things that we've been doing for aeronautics, for example, so the aerospace industry. So we've been releasing a project with Airbus on their 330 manufacturing platforms. And what they do here is that there's one thing that we can really help the workers to be more efficient in the way that it's bolting seats, basically, in the plane. For all of us, it seems pretty simple. We're going to get a bunch of bolts. We're going to have an instruction guide, and off we go. Basically, we just have to bolt them. Well, it's a bit more complex than that, because there's a bunch of holes in this whole plane, basically. And then very often what we figure out is that they start with the first seat, and they shift for one hole, and then the whole stuff has to be done again. So what we've done here is that we've used Vuzix, okay, a display system, basically, to provide augmented reality and tell them exactly where is the hole that they need to bolt on the seat to.
And the benefit here is obviously
500% increased efficiency. This is it.
And so also, you have this thing where people put up with a lot more bulky thing. One of the issues is the technology that powers particularly AR. ODG and others have these glasses, and they're nice enough, but they're not the kind of thing that you or I would want to spend 4 or 5 hours with our friends wearing. And they cost more than we'd want to spend. But for enterprise...
Yeah, and that's it. But I think you're right. I mean, I think we're not yet there where we're going to be able, basically, to deploy all those devices at scale. Why? Because they're, as you said, too heavy. the battery life is not good enough. They don't have all the certification. You know, I mean, they can be IPv6 and everything, but they need to be IP7. They need to be X compliance and everything for explosive atmosphere environment and all those different things that you need, for example, in an oil and gas or refinery. It's not there yet, but it's coming. And in fact, if you look at, there are really three stages. There's the kind of consumer device that we play all, and that we can work in a confined environment, basically with this kind of device. Fine. And there's a kind of the bridge device. You know, the bridge device, I mean, we had like some people here, I mean, they were showing some other device yesterday, RealWear, for example. It's a device that you can wear basically on your helmet. He has IP6 basically certification, and then basically you can start developing use cases there. And then in a year or 2 years' time, you will have really rugged device, things that are going to last for 12 hours on battery. You can drop them, they don't break.
So that piece, to me, as someone who's covered tech for a while, that's the piece that I'm pretty convinced gets solved. It's a thing over time. It's units. It's Moore's law. Costs come down, size comes down. On the content side, on the what are we going to do with this side, how do we get back? Will it just be the typical thing where the consumer guys, the Foxes and the Disneys will come back when the numbers are there? Is there a catalyst in there? What drives sort of things back to consumer and the masses, or in the enterprise side, what takes this from niche use cases of, you know, fixing an airplane where the value is huge to the average productivity worker? I've seen demos where, you know, I'm typing on Microsoft Word, and instead of using a monitor, I've got a headset because I can use 6 windows at once. What drives both sets of adoption?
Well, you know, on the consumer side, the Foxes of the world are not just sitting around. I mean, they're not really just wait and see. Some of the big game studios are definitely wait and see, haven't committed a ton of resources. But when you look at the entertainment industry more broadly in Hollywood, this idea that you could create cinematic experiences that take people into magical artificial worlds, that may be an extension of a brand IP you already have in the theater, is attractive. It's not exactly like the movie business is lighting the world up these days. So they're also looking at this as potentially a new business model. So they're keeping a really, really close watch on it. And they all have innovation labs, you know, Fox Next, Viacom Next. There's a lot of these out there in the entertainment world that are trying to push the envelope on the medium a little bit to understand what content creation means here. Because they don't want to wait around and get caught by the time these devices hit mass scale. That being said, other than a few on Steam, where you have, you know, for the HTC Vive, for example, you have a few 100,000 of these headsets. There have been a few titles that have made a few $1 million, so there's some small independent developers who've done pretty well on that. So there are some early signs of success, but no one's had this one breakout killer app on the consumer side yet. While this is all going on, though, folks like Google aren't standing still, both from their mobile side and even doing things for the Vive and these desktop platforms. They're thinking about this as education, tourism. You know, they brought Google Earth into VR. They're thinking about, I think it's called Explorations. They have a program where they're taking you places around the world, and that can be a combo of video and synthetic media. So, you know, when you look at a company like Google, they're thinking really about this as future consumer interface to teach people, to take them places, and so they're making some experiments there. Nothing's really broken yet, but I think everybody is, you know, we've got the shared belief that something will. We've got enough of these waves of technology adoption in the past to know we couldn't have predicted the killer app going in. And so some of this is just a matter of, you know, time will tell and kind of, you know, staying in the game.
In terms of what you're seeing, Mark, do you see businesses that are thinking of this from a mass adoption standpoint? Do they see a date at which a lot of their workers are doing it, or is it kind of niche as far as the eye can see?
A great question. I think at the beginning, I think it's really a niche, but if we want to go to massive adoptions, I think there's a couple of things that we need. So I think we discussed about use case, and it's not because the devices are not yet ready that we cannot start working on those use cases. It's very important. I think the second thing that is going to be very important, and then everyone kind of tends to forget about it, is all about business case at the end. If there's no business case to support your use case, I mean, why would you want to deploy that at scale? So one thing that is going to be very important is the business case, okay? That supports basically the use case, and this is something that we're spending a lot of time with our clients to understand. So that's where you need to be with the client, understand how it works, and what is basically the daily life of those workers and everything, and how you can help them out. And the last one, I'm not done yet, is the third thing is how you going to finance basically all these investments. You know, you have all those devices. They're pretty expensive, by the way. Of course, I mean, if you order many, I mean, the price will go down, but I mean, it's still pretty expensive infrastructure and in very brownfield environment and everything. You know, I mean, sometimes our clients, they're not ready basically to invest so much. So the third thing is that how are you going to finance that? So the whole engineering that. And then we can think about different ways. You know, for example, you could pay for it, and then you have a subscription model where you amortize basically the upfront investment. I mean, there's many ways to think about it. If we combine all these things together, and then you prove it that's possible technically wise, I think you have something good.
And where does collaboration fit in? I want to get back to the consumer side, but business is often where the dollars are. You know, the fact, you know, most companies are spread out, they have employees in lots of areas. There does seem to be something compelling about this idea that, you know, we could be having this panel and, you know, you couldn't make it because of something and somehow your hologram is on stage. Is that a compelling business use?
It is.
How far is it technically?
No, I think it is. I mean, I think the next revolution is going to be, you know, like basically the shrinking of the distance and the fact that basically people will be on stage with you, and it's just better than telepresence. So I mentioned that our drive, all the R&D globally at Accenture, one thing that we have labs, and we have like smaller labs called nano labs everywhere in the world. And I'm using those nano labs right now as teletransportation pods. So I have my clients to come to visit us, but they don't have access to the lab. So what we're working on basically a teleportation platform. So right now we're working with virtual reality and avatar. I think the next roadmap is going to be auto transportation. Microsoft is testing that in their research center as well, and this is something that we could do. So you 3D scan basically someone, and then in real time almost, I mean, you reproduce that somewhere else. I mean, this is something that works well.
Yeah, I don't know if you folks have seen, but Microsoft just announced these mixed reality capture studios. They've had one in Seattle for years under wraps. They just opened one in San Francisco and in London. And the captures they're doing with this are incredible. So they capture things with very high resolution point clouds, and then they can turn them into reasonable resolution 3D meshes and texture maps you can bring into a Unity application. Recently, I don't know if you heard about this, but there's a music video project that was just done this way using Unity. It's both a music video and a VR piece interactively, where Billy Corgan, who is the singer for the Smashing Pumpkins, is now doing a solo career. He was captured playing at the piano, this wonderful acoustic piece. It's the first single off his new record. And the folks from Viacom Next built the content. Danny Bittman, the premier tilt brush artist in the world, made the most amazing environment art in tilt brush. And it was all at the center of it is this captured Billy Corgan that's really pretty good when you consider where we're at with this technology. The best thing I've ever seen out there. And when I saw that, and I've seen a few instances of this over the last year from that capture studio, I've started to think, given how small they can make it, that we're not probably too far off from having the kind of holographic capture you're talking about, where that could be virtual, Mark, over here. I mean, we got a ways to go before we can project them like this in midair. But the idea that you could have headsets on and have that kind of experience where you've got a collaborative social thing going on for customer support, for teleconferencing, for entertainment, for social media purposes, I don't think it's that far off, actually.
So I do want to get back to where you guys see the future in just one sec, but I want to talk about one of the present constraints. We've talked about technology and we've talked about use case. One of the others that you're probably keenly familiar with, Tony, is the fact is we have a lot of people that know web development. We have a lot of people that know coding. To do VR or AR or gaming, you need a specific set of 3D skills that there aren't. It's a finite set of people. And are we seeing them today sort of, seeing the market sort of choose its bets? A bunch of them went to VR. Now some of them are going into AR. And how big a constraint is that? The number of people that actually know how to use your guys' tools, for example.
That number is getting bigger every day. And certainly, and I've been in this field for 20 years. It was horrible 20 years ago. I mean, there's really only a few 100,000 people who knew how to do anything like this. Unity has 1 million monthly active developers. We have far more than that who've registered lifetime. When you look at the number of folks who can use a 3D modeling package coming from the visual effects industry or from architecture, it's well into the millions at this point. And I believe that's just going to be growing. I mean, we're seeing kids picking up Unity in middle school now. So I believe that is a skill that folks are going to pick up and develop. It's not just like you can snap your fingers and instantly have a Z-axis and you're a 3D designer. You do need to skill up for that. But I don't think it's maybe as small as folks might think it is. And so I think as this wave happens, just like 20 years ago, nobody was a web developer. Now anybody can be a web developer. As this expands, I think we're going to see more and more people pick up 3D development skills, and the tools like Unity get even easier. I mean, it's still a programmer's tool right now, but we're spending a lot of time with other industries like auto, or the building and architecture industries, brand creative, and these other places that need a little bit different workflow and easier tools. And so I think the tools will also sort of level up to allow other people to get into the game.
So we've talked about hologram sort of telepresence. We've talked about, sort of moving into this world where workers in a particular skill have glasses to help them do their job. Talk about some of the things you think are 5 to 10 years off that we aren't thinking about. What are the use cases that aren't ripped straight from science fiction?
So one thing that the lab's been doing, and looking at the automotive industry, you look at basically how they've been using, like designing new models and everything, using clay, to try to design the shape of the car and everything. Obviously, they moved to CAD/CAM environments like Dassault systems and so forth and everything. I think what we need to see now, and I think it's go back to the discussion about what type of skills we need, and we're going to see that basically there's going to talent migrating there. We're going to see two worlds that's going to start merging. We're going to see the CAD/CAM world, basically where people are designing stuff in 2Ds and everything. And then eventually, basically, they will transport this into like a virtual reality world that's going to be shareable by everyone. And so using HoloLens glasses or any type of mixed reality glass like Meta and everything, people will be able to share what has been designed on the CAD/CAM environment and be able to work it out and everything from all over the world. That's going to be really, really interesting. And there are companies like startups like Simpligone, for example. They're really bridging those two worlds, the world of CAD/CAM, the world of virtual realities, augmented reality or mixed reality. And it's been acquired by Microsoft very recently because that's exactly what they're looking at. And we're going to see more and more. So I think that's definitely what we will see. I want to go back to the discussion about the talent. I think we see also a lot of people basically learning Unity platforms. The reason why people are pushing into the 3D is that, again, it's what I call IT consumerization. A lot of things have been pushed to the people basically so that they learn by themselves. Look at Microsoft. The last 2 updates of Microsoft is all about 3D. It's all about VR, AR, mixed reality. Creator update, full update. Paint, all 3D. Portal to access the stuff. Visual Studio has Unity plugged in. People are curious.
PowerPoint has 3D built.
That's right. People are curious. They're going to start playing. Kids are playing that at school and everything. So we're shifting really, where basically, and I'm kind of joking basically with our leadership at Accenture because 30 years ago, what we were doing, we were digitalizing 2D documents using optical character recognition into PDF document. Today we need to do that for 3 dimension. We need to take every trillion parts out there, 3D scan them, so that basically we build an hologram that's going to be able to bring basically to your mixed reality to do exactly what I said between the CAD/CAM and the gaming environment.
And Tony, when you look out a little bit, what do you think is possible that most people haven't gotten their heads around?
Well, I think, and it's hard to imagine these without getting into science fiction, but I'm just going to try, right?
You can. Science fiction.
Yeah, so let's just pick up on the auto example that Mark just brought up. So in that world of the future, the self-driving car that we were all talking about yesterday on the panel here, that self-driving car will be designed completely in VR. The factory it's built in will be designed completely in VR. The assembly procedures for putting it together, humans will still be involved in that. It won't all be robots. Will be in some kind of VR simulation and training because it's going to increase productivity, improve safety dramatically. The self-driving cars themselves won't be put on the road until they've been simulated billions and billions of times with headless computers doing 3D calculations. The network of these self-driving cars is going to be monitored by operators wearing AR headsets to see the vastness of the information there. My kid's going to get into one of these to go to his college. And what's inside it, and they talked about this yesterday actually, the cabin of that car is an entertainment center. Or it's a game console, or it's a web browser, or whatever you want to call it. You get into the empty cabin of this car.
You're not actually going to drop off your kid at college. They're going to get taken in a self-driving car, and you're going to have that goodbye moment. You're going to be crying from a VR headset.
Yeah,
eventually,
yeah.
That's right.
But they're going to get in there, and this cabin is going to be this holographic cabin that's going to be full of entertainment. They're going to check their social feed. They're going to go on Twitch and check V Sports. They're going to get a call interrupting them from their mom, reminding them to eat, and then she's going to be a hologram in there, right? And everything I just said it's not that science fiction-y because it's all happening. Unity is having conversations with, I'm sure Accenture is too, with the automakers where they're doing all this already. They're starting to design the cars. Mark already talked about this. But everything from that to the entertainment center, which of course initially is going to be little 2D screens in the cabin, you can imagine it won't be long before that's holographic entertainment as well.
I want to go back to this, exactly what Tony said. I mean, it's very interesting to see this kind of cockpit of the future in the car, because with those driverless cars, basically, you need to find something to do. And so eventually, basically, those cars will be turned into a La Saloon, basically, when you can have your Erdo. So this is how it's going to work. Basically, you drive your car, and then you use artificial intelligence, basically, to talk to your virtual agent to say, I'd like to have a new Erdo. Okay? And what it will do is it will transform completely the car and the look and feel, and you'll be seated in this, basically, seat. At the same time, basically, they will connect to the Uber of Barber. And then basically, the guys basically that will stop by, will stop in your car, go into your car, do the haircut, and then move away. And then this is how it's going to work. So you see, what's going to be very interesting is that today, we have basically the technology ready in terms of platforms already. We just have to connect the dots together to invent basically a new world, and this is coming.
Okay, great. Well, I have a couple more questions, but I do want to leave some time for audience questions. Are there folks out there with questions? And please wait for a mic, because then we can't record your thoughts and trap your brainwaves for your future hologram. Anyone with questions? Am I missing someone? Yeah, right in front.
How does Unity think about voice design and integrating voice interfaces into the design and development process for VR?
Well, we're super excited about it. We don't really have anybody in-house kind of working on designs like this. We do have what we call Unity Labs, which is a group who does work on some design projects. We're currently more focused on the mixed reality aspects of it, which includes gesture, as well as which kind of headsets you'd be using, to do everything from make this table come to life, to make a business card, turn it into a live interface, starting with a physical business card. We do assume there will be some voice activation around that, but we have not sort of plumbed the depths of that design. The way the company works is we're very much an open ecosystem, so we just assume someone's going to come along with some voice plugins that's going to really sort of drill in and specialize on that. So that's not an area we've done some deep work on yet.
You've talked about how the resolution isn't quite there with VR glasses yet, things like that. When do you predict we'll have things that are, the weight of normal glasses, like the one Ina's wearing, that actually can do AR and VR in a resolution that looks like the real world?
These actually are. I've been watching Avatar the whole time. No, seriously, that really is the consumer question. When can I put on glasses that can do AR that look like this?
My guess is going to be definitely less than 5 years' time. We see that already. There's like a lot of labs and companies that are working on this. I think less than 5 years, we'll see some really very tangible results of using the systems. Again, it's all based on certification, but it's coming very, very fast. I think one thing that we haven't mentioned also, and that we don't see, we've been talking all about efficiency, productivity, new way of doing things like instant gratification. You could be transported anywhere in the world and everything. We have not addressed the VR for good. How virtual reality is going to help basically to bring more inclusivity into what we're doing. This is very important. I wanted to give you an example that what we did recently with the National Theatre of London. For people that cannot hear, that cannot listen to play, then they have to wear basically those very lightweight AR glasses and then get the caption on the play. How cool is that? I think that's what we need to see also, is that there's going to be a move there where through inclusivity, through VR for good, we're going to see like new devices that are going to be developed like this, lightweight, better battery life, and those different things.
And when you talk about what's really been compelling so far in VR, to me, if I were to list off the few most compelling examples in VR, they've been things that put me in someone else's shoes. Clouds over Sidra that took you into a Syrian refugee camp. Or going places I couldn't physically go. Maybe I can't go to Costa Rica because I can't afford it, or I don't have the time. Other people might have physical limitations. How important is it as a tool for inclusivity and for equality?
Yeah, for us, within Accenture, obviously we're about 420,000 people, so we recruit about 60,000 people per year. So we got to make sure that when we recruit those people, we bring the experience of what it is to work at Accenture. So we have developed an applications VR applications that mimic basically what it is, or your first day, are you stressed, are you, and stuff like that. I mean, no, I mean, you're not so stressed, but I mean, it's just like explaining this story. Empathy, how you manage empathy. We did another one, which is really cool. It's all about basically a gender swap.
Yes.
So we take people basically, and then we work with Mensa Lab, which is a company in France. And what we've developed basically, we developed like how it is to have a meeting with just like 5 ladies and you're just the single male, or vice versa. And then basically we're going to quiz you and we're going to look at basically how you reply basically to questions and how you behave. And based on that, I mean, we can help you out. I mean, to improve basically in the way in my management style. Okay. So
yeah, and I've seen a couple of great examples of the sort of gender swap, or these empathy exercises that are intended to educate around sexual harassment, sexual assault. I just became an advisor to a project like that. I think the potential is incredible there. A lot of that is video-based right now. I think we'll see some combination of video and CG as this evolves. But the storytelling in video is actually a little bit more cost-effective, and it's the thing a lot of filmmakers, especially documentarians and educators, know a little better. But I think it's super high potential for that.
Well, I'd love to keep talking about this, particularly interested in how one could change genders in VR. That might be interesting. Anyway, it's been a pleasure. Next time, we're going to revisit this in a couple of years. We're going to have you back on stage. We're going to have your avatar.
that's right. Hologram.
Okay. Excellent. Well, join me in thanking Mark and Tony.
Thanks.